Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us at this evening's event. We have quite an exciting and packed evening in store for you all. But to start off, I want to start by acknowledging the Bedegal people, who are the traditional custodians of the land that the UNSW Kensington campus stands on. I would also like to acknowledge the Wangal people, who are the traditional custodians of the land that I am sitting on tonight as I join you from my home. I'd also like to pay my respects to elders both past and present and extend that respects to other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders who are present here today. So I'll give you a little bit of an overview of what we've got in store. As I said, it's quite a jam-packed evening. To start off with, we have Professor Gabriel Lodovax, who is our head of school at Aviation, and he's going to provide us with a bit of an introduction to UNSW Aviation and applying for the Aviation Management Program. We'll then be joined by Malcolm Good, who is our Director of Flying Operations and Chief Pilot, and he's going to run through the Bachelor of Aviation Flying and some of the intricacies associated with applying that program and also completing it. Finally, we will be joined by Ian Chen and Tevan Chinnathambi, who are current UNSW Aviation students, and they're going to share a little bit about what it's actually like studying aviation at UNSW. Finally, we're going to wrap up with a Q&A session, and this is really your chance to get your questions answered. So you'll see that you have a little Q&A chat box that you can pop your questions in there. You'll also be able to see questions submitted by other attendees, and you can like those to upvote them. So make sure that you're putting everything in there, you're liking questions that you want to see answered, as we'll try to address as many of those as we possibly can at the end of the session. So to kick us off, I'm going to provide a little bit of an introduction to UNSW as a whole. So we have a lot of students and a lot of different degrees. We are quite a huge institution, as I'm sure you're all aware. One thing I really wanted to highlight is the extensive work integrated learning and sort of partnership opportunities that you have when you are studying at UNSW. Some of you may be aware that we were originally founded as a technical institution, so we do have a really strong background in science and engineering and getting really hands-on and practical experience. And we've stayed true to those roots with the different opportunities for different career development and work integrated learning that you have when you study with us. So there are a lot of reasons why we think that UNSW is a great place to be. And I just want to highlight some of them here to start us off. So we are a highly ranked university. We do have that prestige. So when you get a degree from UNSW, you have that sort of name backing you up. And you also know that you are going to be learning from the best of the best. We're also the #1 institution attended by Australian startup founders. So you can see that we are really innovative. We like to be at the forefront of our field, and we like to provide you with the tools and opportunities to get hands-on and get involved with making your mark on the world and starting your career journey there. Finally, I also wanted to flag that we do have 300 plus exchange partners. So it's obviously a little bit different at the moment with all the current restrictions and everything going on in the world, but we are hoping that we can get back to sending our students all over the globe in a little bit. And hopefully some of you who are interested in studying overseas and trying a few different countries out there will have that opportunity as part of your study. One thing that I just wanted to flag, particularly given we are going to talk about some really specialist degrees this evening, is that if you are thinking about going on exchange, it's really important to plan that out ahead. Look at where you might be able to put your free electives and plan for that from the start of your degree. Finally, I thought I'd just do a little bit of an introduction to Sydney, which really is one of Australia's global cities. It's a fantastic place to live. I'm not going to touch too much on that as Tevan will cover a little bit more of that as we get to the end of the presentation. But in terms of where you would actually be situated with our campus, we're located a stone's throw away from the CBD. So you've got access to all of the great things that are happening in the city. You're right at the forefront without necessarily being right in the heart of all the traffic and that side of things. You're also very close to the beach, so you can explore around there, take a load off between classes and really sort of soak up all of the beautiful environment and atmosphere that Sydney has to offer. So that's sort of a bit of an introduction to UNSW and who we are and where we are. But I would like to welcome to the virtual stage Gabriel to tell us a bit more about the Aviation School and the Aviation Management programs.
Thank you very much, Ali, for this introduction. Welcome, everybody. Great to see that you joined us this evening, and I would love to introduce you into the very exciting world of aviation at the University of New South Wales, or UNSW. Why would you like to come to UNSW? Well, you already heard some of the reasons, and good to realize that UNSW is ranked 43 in the Q ranking, so we're really high up, and we are the highest ranked university that actually offer a flying program. Our university really drives innovation, working together with industry to improve continuously the programs that we offer. And by being an international university, a part of the world, we have degrees that offer you a global impact. This is something I would like to start with. It seems a bit contradictory, I guess, but actually there has never been a better time to look at aviation. And the reason for that is that under the current circumstances, a lot of senior managers, senior pilots actually retired. So when aviation is back up to where we were before COVID-19, and when we exceed those levels, airlines, but also airports need a lot of new employees to fill the roles that are currently vacant. And just as an example, just the other day there, and it was in June this year, there was this message that United expects to hire 25,000 new employees by 2026, which is probably, if you start in 2022, that's when you will hit the market. So there really never had been a better time to look at aviation and consider a career in aviation. The future of aviation, well, aviation is changing, and one of the changes we will see is a change towards a more sustainable aviation. And sustainability means that, looking at sustainable airports where you use renewables or electrify the fleet that brings baggage to aircraft, and the same thing for aircraft themselves. So we will see that there are changes, but still we need a lot of new people that work in aviation industry in the future. And if you look at the career opportunities that you have, well, if you choose for a flying program, and Malcolm Good will tell you more about how the flying program actually works, then obviously what you're looking for is a career with an airline. But it's not just in Australia like Qantas or Virgin or Rex. It can be regional, can be domestic, international, but we also have the corporate industry. We have general aviation, helicopters, survey, the Royal Flying Doctors. There are all kinds of different careers, and you have the opportunity to pick the one that really suits you. If you look at management, the interesting thing about aviation is it's a very broad industry. It ranges from the airlines and the airports to logistic service providers, to component suppliers like General Electric Aviation, for example, that supplies the engines to the Qantas domestic fleet. You can look at air traffic control, security, safety, scheduling. There are lots and lots of different roles in the aviation industry. Having said that, obviously, if you would like to be active in the aviation industry, you have to be employable. Now, what does that mean? That means that as a pilot, you will have to have a CPL or a commercial pilot license, an instrument or instructor rating, and the ATPL theory. And to enter the main airlines, you will need at least, depending on the airline, between 500 and 2,000 hours of flying. Now, if you finish with us and you did it nominal, you probably start with about 200 hours. So you have a little bit of flying to do before you can actually join one of the major airlines. In aviation management, there are basically two choices: or you pick a general degree in engineering or business, like aerospace engineering or commerce or economics, or you choose for a broader study like aviation, which is an industry-based degree. Now, why would you go to university? Well, if you're looking at, for example, the Bachelor of Aviation Management program, then that seems to be an obvious question, because it provides you a program at UNSW level, at university level, and that gives you a really good starting point for your life after university. If you do the flying program, then obviously there are different options. You can go to one of the commercial flying schools, but if you do that, you miss out completely on the university option. And that is really important because if you choose for the aviation flying bachelor, then once you're finished, you not only have your CPL, but you also have a bachelor degree. So if sometime in life you decide that flying is not suiting you anymore or temporarily, you still have your bachelor degree as a safety net. The other thing is that with a university degree, companies really look for the best of the best. And having a UNSW degree, you will be one of those. Now, UNSW School of Aviation, last year we celebrated our 25th anniversary, so established in 1995. We are active on 2 locations, Kensington, that's the main campus of UNSW, and Bankstown, that's the airport where the flight operations are based. The school has about 80 staff members, over 300 management students, altogether 2,200 hours of electives delivered, and we have over 80 full-time flying students that fly altogether 6,500 hours. Now, in order to get you to the level where you want to be, what we need obviously are tools. And these are our tools, and they're actually really cool. I've been with UNSW now for 5 years. I still really like it. In the flying program, what's important is, the equipment that you use in the flying program, which are the Diamond DA-40s, the single engine aircraft that you can see in the top left. And the twins, the Piper Seminoles, we have 3 of those and 10 Diamonds. Now, we also have quite a few simulators. Actually, we have 4. There's one in Kensington, but these 3 that you're looking at are based in Bankstown. And they're all based on the cockpit that we use in our aircraft, which is based on the Garmin 1000, which is the best of the best, really modern equipment that we use in our fleet. Now, why UNSW Aviation? I've already mentioned a couple of things. The highest ranked university that offers these degrees. But what's also important to realize is that UNSW owns and operates its own flying school. So the flight operations are part of the university, and that's a very important difference because it's supposed to deliver graduates that have very high qualifications, and that's recognized in the market. Now, we have strong connections with the industry, not just airlines, but also airports, which gives you great opportunities to get your experience in the industry. Now, the wheel courses have already been mentioned, but internships are available as well. And having our own flying school, obviously, we own our own fleets of aircraft. Now, how do you get in? That's a good question. Let's look at that. So starting with aviation management. We have a number of programs available. If you look at the undergrad programs, there are basically 3. We have the Bachelor of Aviation Management, the Bachelor of Aviation Flying, and a Bachelor of Commerce/Aviation. That's dual degree. Now, the first 2 will take you 3 years if you finish in nominal time. And the third one, if you have a dual degree, will take you 4 years. Now, after that, you have quite some options. You can go, for example, for a graduate diploma in aviation management. You can do an honors year. You can go for a master in aviation management, which is online, 100%. Go for a PhD degree, or pick one of the special programs, or if at the time it is available, look at the grad dip in flying. Now, starting with the Bachelor of Aviation Management. UNSW, as you may know, has 3 terms in the year, so the academic year is split in 3, and you can start in any of these 3 terms, whatever suits you. And like I said, the Bachelor of Aviation Management is a 3-year program emphasizing practical aspects of aviation operational management. And the dual degree then obviously adds the Bachelor of Commerce to that. The degree structure, if you look at the academic core, from science, you will have mathematics, physics, statistics. From engineering side, you will have aerodynamics. You will get knowledge about engines, airframes, and systems. And specifically for the management side, the engineering side is more for the flying students. But management students get human factors, flight safety, airline management, aviation economics and finance, simulation, and air traffic management. Now, the management stream takes 30 weeks per year because each term is 10 weeks with a break in week number 6. And we have some special industry subjects like operation management, marketing, regional airline, security, safety, airline law, resource management, workplace safety, and air transport economics and the environment. The entry requirements are as listed on this slide. The HR equivalent is 75. UNSW Foundation Study GPA 6.9. The GCA A levels is 10. And the IB International Baccalaureate Diploma 26 or the SAT 1130. Then we have the postgraduate aviation management programs. Like I said, there's the graduate diploma in aviation management, which will take you 1 year. And this also emphasizes practical aspects of aviation operational management. And then we have the Master of Aviation Management, that if you take the full program will take you 2 years, emphasizing practical aspects again of aviation operational management. With the master degree, it depends on your history. If you have experience in the industry, you may get some advanced standing, maximum up to 1 year. So that will basically cut that program in half time-wise. We have a couple of special programs available. If you would study at Hong Kong Polytech and you do one of the aviation programs right there, which are 4-year programs, you have access to our master program and you will get 1 year advanced standing. So to get to the master will then take you 1 year. We have some special programs with CM Technology College students. Same thing for Pahang University, and that concerns the flying college over there. We have an agreement with Wuhan University of Technology, and the same thing as with Hong Kong Polytech. Depending on your background, you may be eligible for advanced standing. And in the development is a special pathway for Aviation Australia students in the Bachelor program. How to apply? That's easy enough. UNSW, you can apply online or through the international office. Obviously, being based in Australia, it's important that you can speak English and you can read it and understand it well. And there are some requirements like the IELTS test, 6.5 with a minimum of 6 in each band. TOEFL tests, 90 overall, minimum to 23 in writing, 22 in reading, listening, and speaking. And if you go to UNSW Foundation, you need to successfully complete with an overall grade of C+ and a minimum grade of C in the writing component. Over to you, Ellie.
Awesome. Thank you for that comprehensive look at the school and the management programs. I'd now like to welcome Malcolm to the virtual stage, and he'll run us through the flying side of things to round things out.
Thanks, Ellie. Welcome, everyone. Malcolm Good's my name. I'm the Director of Operations at the Flying Operations Unit at Bankstown Airport. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you tonight about the flying program, which is a fantastic program that I've been involved with for about 20 years now. What I'll do is I'll give you an overview of the detail, because it is easy to get lost in some of the terminology and all the requirements that go into becoming a pilot. So I'll break that down for you. And I'll certainly do my best to answer any questions you have about flying training at UNSW or generally at the end. So what we have on the screen at the moment is an overview of the structure of the course. So each row is first year, second year, third year, and then along the top of each row, term 1, term 2, term 3. So in first year, and I'll expand on this in a few slides' time, you spend term 1 and 2 at Kensington doing academic courses that some are specialised to aviation and others are general courses that most people from the science faculty do. The real fun starts in term 3, though, where you begin your flying training. So the first ground theory courses, aeronautical knowledge, or RPL aeronautical knowledge. You might have heard of BAK, which is basic aeronautical knowledge. That's what that is. And we also do a selection activity at the end of term 3, which is called flight selection. I'll describe that for you on the next slide. In second year, you'll see commercial navigation, commercial meteorology, and so on. There are 7 commercial pilot license theory courses that are required. Each of those has a corresponding exam conducted by the aviation regulator in Australia. That's CASA, the Civil Aviation Safety Authority. And a pass in each one of those exams is required for you to obtain a commercial license, which is, of course, the goal of coming here. So we do 4 of those CPL subjects in term 1 and 3 in term 2, but you are flying at the same time. So just underneath, you'll see in term 1 of second year, you start flying for your recreational pilot license. That's up to 40 hours of flying in the DA40. And then after that, 31 hours of flying in the DA40 to take you to your private license. In term 2, the aim is to complete the commercial pilot license flying, which is another 87 hours in the DA40. Term 3, the theory course is called an instrument rating. That's the qualification that allows you to fly at night and in bad weather. Now, that doesn't sound like much fun, but we avoid the seriously bad weather, but you do need to be able to fly around in cloud and at night, because that's where professional pilots spend a lot of their time. At the same time, you start flying in the multi-engine aeroplane. That's 9 hours in the Seminole to get your multi-engine class rating, and then another 29 hours in the Seminole to achieve your instrument rating. So all of that flying adds up to 200 hours, 130 dual. Dual means with an instructor, and 70 command. The command means by yourself in the aeroplane. And many of those flights go a long way from Bankstown Airport. Pre-COVID anyway, we used to go to Melbourne and Brisbane, but we do go all over regional New South Wales. So if it's your goal to see the world, this would be a fantastic starting point. Not included in those 200 hours, but extra to those 200 hours is about 35 hours of simulator time in the various simulators. We use the simulators to introduce and consolidate procedures that you'll be using in the aeroplane. Third year, academic courses at Kensington. Again, I'll go through those in a moment, but then in terms 2 and 3, you do what's called air transport pilot license theory. Again, there are 7 subjects. The air transport pilot license is the license you need to fly big aeroplanes, jets for airlines, as the captain. So graduating from the Bachelor of Aviation flying means that you will be qualified as far as is possible, given that you've only got 200 hours of flying, to get where you want to go in your career. There is an elective component just there at the bottom of term 3 that I'll talk about in a sec. Okay, now flight selection. We run a flight selection component at the end of term 3 to first year, just to make sure that everyone's ready to move into second year. That component has that selection activity has 3 components. The first one is an academic course, AVIA 1111. That's the basic aeronautical knowledge theory course that you'll do in term 3. After that, we do some airborne and simulated flying, 4 hours in the DA40 of general flying, 1 hour in the simulator, and we do an aptitude test that some of you may have heard of. It's used worldwide, called Compass. And that test just tests things like your spatial orientation, your hand-eye foot coordination, and so on. It's actually very similar to tests that airlines use to select pilots, so it'd be a good experience for you. I did mention the electives. In third year, you have the choice of adding bits onto the basic CPL instrument rating and the air transport license theory. They're the core components of the course. But you do have the option of undertaking a multi-crew cooperation course, which is undertaken with retired or in some cases still serving airline pilots. That's the course that will teach you how to fly as a crew. Now, commercial license is a single pilot license. That means you fly the aeroplane by yourself. But airline flying is conducted as a crew. And in fact, to operate that way takes some training because it's quite different to single pilot flying. Most of our international students either do the multi-crew cooperation course, which I've just described, or the next one, which is called Airline Experience. Now, Airline Experience is an elective designed to ensure that you meet whatever your home country regulator license conversion requirements are. And I'll give you an example. Some countries require 250 hours of flying training before you can convert your license, your Australian license, to your home country's license. Our course and most professional pilot courses worldwide are 200 hours. This elective is designed so that if you need extra hours to convert your license, then we can give you those hours. So whether it's extra command hours, some extra night hours, or extra hours in total, that elective can be tailored to meet your home country requirements. We also offer an instrument correction and instructor rating, which is about 50 hours of flying. You can do a general aviation flying course, which is a course that some people choose to do if they think they're going to get a job in a remote part of Australia, or you can undertake a research project. This here is just a description of the academic curriculum. So if you look at stage 2, you will see those commercial aeronautical knowledge subjects, the 7 of them that I described: navigation, meteorology, flight rules, flight planning, aerodynamics, and aircraft general knowledge, and the instrument rating. But if you look back at stage 1, there's what you'll be doing in first year before you come to the FAU to start your flying. So you'll see maths for life sciences, statistics, physics, energy and environmental physics, aviation transport economics, and introduction to aircraft engineering. If you look over at stage 3, you might recall that term 1 of third year was also spent at Kensington, and you'll be doing airline management, simulator applications and air traffic management, and aviation safety and resource management. We do feel that it's important that you have a well-rounded education, not just learn how to fly the aeroplane. That's the point of having those additional subjects, some from maths, some from physics, and some from the School of Aviation itself in your degree. There are fees obviously associated with flying training. Every student pays tuition fees. They're the fees that are charged for each academic course that you take. If you are going to fly aeroplanes, there are additional fees that are on the next slide. Most of those fees are billed to you in your second year, and they're about 140,000 Australian dollars at the moment. So that's a brief breakdown of when the fees are charged. There's a small deposit in September of first year, 5 payments in second year, and then in third year there's a fee for whichever elective you choose, remembering that the research project doesn't attract any fee at all. Application, that's probably the easiest part of what you'll do. I should stress that flying as a career is a lot of fun. Learning to fly is a serious business, though, and we treat it like that. Safety is our primary concern, and we will do everything possible to achieve safe operations. We routinely engage with the regulator, industry, and other experts, including from the school, and we have a very active safety management system that you'll all be part of. That's the serious bit, but the fun bit is actually flying the aeroplanes. So if you want to do that, you can apply online or through the international office, and we have people at the school ready to assist as well if you have any trouble with that. I believe the entry requirements are the same for the Bachelor of Aviation Flying as they were on the previous slide, so I won't read through those for you. But don't think that the things on that slide are the only entry requirements. There are equitable and equivalent entry requirements for basically any country on Earth. So if you check that website, you can find the entry requirements for your country. Now, pathways for pilots, it can be difficult if you're an international student to go back to your home country and get a job. The first thing you need to consider is how are you going to convert your license? So we can certainly help you with that once you're here to understand the requirements from your home country. The good thing is, though, the licensing system is basically the same in each country. There are slight differences, but the Australian CPL is recognised by ICAO, of course, along with the Australian Instrument Rating. So there really aren't too many problems. Your pathway as an international student will almost always be into an airline. Airlines have very different entry requirements as time goes on, so they change for one airline as time goes on, and they're different for each airline even at the same time. So it does take some effort to get to know what the airline entry requirements are for the airlines you want to target. But if you do that, you will be successful. Cadetship versus direct entry, what that means is some airlines offer jobs to pilots who have just graduated from a place like UNSW. Other airlines will only employ pilots with a significant amount of flying experience. Advantages of UNSW, well, we do have spectacular success with our cadets. So we have many duxers of cadetships all around the world. Most recently in Adelaide, one of our ex-graduates duxed the flying course. We do have mentoring available to all our students by current airline pilots. In fact, there are 2 programs where international Qantas pilots are paired with each of our students in 3rd year. And we also have a partnership with Qantas Link, which is the regional airline of Qantas. And they provide mentoring and training and assessment to all our 2nd year students. We own the aeroplanes, we own the buildings, we employ the instructors. We don't subcontract any of the flying training to anyone else. That ensures that we're able to maintain a university standard, a very high standard across everything that we do. Well, thanks everyone for listening. I hope I didn't bore you too much, and I'll hand back to Ali, and hopefully I can answer some of your questions later on.
Fantastic. Thank you, Malcolm. It was really great to hear about some of those pathways and a little bit more detail about what it's actually like to be in the flying program. It's now my pleasure to hand over to Ian and Tevan, who will take us through a bit about the student experience and what it's actually like to be living and studying in Sydney and at UNSW.
Great, thank you so much. So, yeah, hi everyone. My name is Ian. I'm a fourth year student in the Commerce and Aviation Management stream, and I'm joined by Tevan as well. Tevan, do you want to just give an intro about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm a third year student, also studying a Bachelor of Commerce and Aviation Management. And I went into aviation because I always saw it as a very interesting and unique industry. My dad has worked in aviation for over 30 years and as an aircraft engineer, and he's opened my eyes to the world of aviation. And I knew from a very young age that I wanted to work in the industry as well.
Yeah, so like similar to Tevan, I saw aviation as, an enabler and a big contributor to the economy. So, I mean, it is and always will be a huge part of Australia's economy. So that's something that I've always been interested in, and I found like since I was young, I really wanted to end up working in the industry, whether it's in the management side or if it's an operational side. I think there's a lot of options to explore. So on that note, just wanted to touch on what it was like being a student studying aviation here. And I really just wanted to highlight that part of why I chose UNSW was because I knew that it would give me a very holistic experience in terms of balancing not just like a strong academic education, but also having that holistic and comprehensive curriculum, including, touching on all the different sides of the industry. You've also got volunteering opportunities, career opportunities that really sort of supplement that academic experience. So one of the big highlights so far for my university experience would be involvements in university committees and societies, and in UNSW Aviation, we have the UNSW Aviation Society, which really serves to represent the interests of all of the student members. And we do that through, the society does that through linking up with lots of partners in the industry. Some big names include Qantas, Singapore Airlines, Sydney Airport, as well as the Royal Aeronautical Society. Tevan's also had some opportunities involved in there as well. So I'll hand it over to Tevan.
Yeah, so just earlier this year, I had the opportunity to be the AVSOC student representative for the Royal Aeronautical Society, which I will refer to as the RAS from now on because it's just too long. So in short, for those of you that don't know what the RAS is, it was established in 1866 and is a professional body dedicated to the aeronautical community. It allows for individuals who share a passion for aviation to come together to share their experiences and knowledge. And that's to help better the future of the industry through science and engineering. So it's a global society with multiple branches and divisions across the globe, and I work with the Sydney division. And my role as a student representative is to liaise between AVSOC and the RAS to help organise networking opportunities for our students. So the reason the RAS is so valuable is because it's a very big society, and majority of the members have had really valuable experiences, with many of them holding managerial positions in different parts of the industry, including within airlines and airports. Each member as well also has a very large reach in terms of connections, networks, and people that they know. So it's with that we're able to provide students with really valuable networking opportunities that can help often lead to internships and work opportunities with AVSOC. I'll hand it back over to Ian now to talk a little bit about accommodation.
Yep, so just really quickly touching on student accommodation. Some of you may be wondering, what are your opportunities available if you come to study at UNSW, and where would you stay? Well, the uni has a lot of flexible options available if you're, whether or not you're looking for that college kind of experience, or if you're just looking for more self-serving, sorry, not independent style of living in terms of, having to prepare your own meals and things like that. So being a little bit more independent. So staying on campus, I find, is a really great way to embrace life at university, because you won't feel like limited to take part in all of the events available. You're right there in the heart of it, and you've got all of these facilities around you to support you in really, maximizing your experience here. So whether that's academics, sports, lifestyle, sport facilities, they're all, available and in close proximity. And you've also got access to a lot of great places for food as well. And so another highlight in staying on campus is that it's that positioned really well, and you've got great access to the whole of the highlights of Sydney. So yeah, I'll just leave it to Tevan just to talk a bit more about Sydney's lifestyle as well.
Yeah, so so the UNSW campus is amazing. It's not too big, but it's not too small either. You've got a lot of open spaces, and it's got a really big range of cafes and restaurants on site. More importantly for me is that there's a lot of study spaces like in every corner of campus, and it suits all your needs, whether you're wanting a place to be by yourself and in a quiet area, or you need a larger space to study in groups, or to work on group assignments, or to do group study. Another big part of UNSW is the Roundhouse, which is where a lot of the parties and big social events are held. But it's also a great place to just relax. You've got the opportunity to play some table tennis, grab something to eat and drink, and just have some quality downtime with your friends. The other great thing about UNSW is the fact that it's so close to the heart of the city, which Ali and Ian mentioned. It only takes about 15 to 20 minutes by bus to get to Circular Quay, which is where you'll find the Harbour Bridge and the Opera House. And if you travel 20 minutes in the other direction, you'll find yourself at Coogee Beach, which is just another great place to relax and spend time with friends as well. There's so much to explore in the city, but there's also lots to see in areas outside of the city. One example is the Blue Mountains, where there's the Three Sisters, which is often an attraction not just to tourists, but also to locals. And the great thing about Sydney is that our rail network is quite connected. So even though the Blue Mountains is over 100 kilometres away, it's getting there is pretty easy. All you have to do is catch a bus to Central, which is the hub of our rail network, and catch a train, and you're there at the Blue Mountains. So so Sydney is really accessible from UNSW and even Greater Sydney. Thank you. Back to Ali.
Awesome. Thank you for that insight to both of you. It's really good to actually hear from current students what it is like to be living and studying in Sydney and at UNSW specifically. It sounds like there have been some pretty great opportunities that you've both been involved in. So we'll move now to the question and answer portion of the evening. We've still got a fair bit of time, so if you do want to put any more questions in, you do want to upvote questions that you'd like to see answered, make sure that you're doing that, and I'll try to get through as many of them as we can. There's already a few in here, so we might start with a question for Gabriel, and that is about the aviation industry at the moment. You sort of mentioned through your component of the presentation that we are going to see the aviation industry bouncing back and sort of moving back to those pre-pandemic levels. What sort of timeline do you see this happening on?
Yeah, thank you for that question. That's a really good question. I think there's no single answer to that question. I think it depends on where you are around the world. What we, for example, saw here just before the second lockdown here in Sydney is that Qantas had its domestic network pretty much completely back up and running. Frequency is a bit lower, but it was getting quite close. Obviously, now that's changed. If you look at Europe and the US, they are getting close to where they were before COVID-19. There are obviously still some restrictions, so passenger numbers may be down, but destinations and number of flights are getting up. So it all depends on what happens from here. I don't have a crystal ball, but my expectation is that by the end of 22, early 23, we should be back to a relatively new normal situation, I suppose. But like I said, it depends on where you are. Look at what happens in China with the domestic network, pretty much fully up and running. So it really depends. I think the good news is, and I would like to emphasize that, is that if you start with your study next year, it obviously takes you 3 years. So that means that 22, 23, and 24, you will be studying. And you start looking for a job in 25. And I'm absolutely confident that by then we're back to normal.
That's absolutely right, isn't it? The time you spend studying is a good time to wait it out, and you'll be a wealth of opportunities are waiting for you on the other side. So we've had another question come in, which is a little bit about the entry requirements and around prerequisites, asking whether physics is compulsory for students who wish to pursue commerce and aviation management. So I might just jump in on this one and make sure that you're all aware of this. UNSW actually doesn't have any prerequisites, which is a really fantastic thing because it means regardless of what you've studied, you're not precluded from taking any courses. Having said that, some courses do have what we call assumed knowledge, which is a level of background knowledge that your academics expect that you have when they're teaching you. So for commerce and aviation management, the only assumed knowledge is mathematics, so you don't need to have that physics background, and the mathematics is assumed for the commerce component of the degree. So it sounds like the student who's asking this question does have that background already, but if you were considering something like this and you didn't, you also have the opportunity to catch up through bridging courses or your own independent study. So another question that we have coming in here about flying, I might direct to Malcolm. So if a student is going to start in term 3 rather than at the start of the year, do they follow the course schedule as it's listed out, or do they start in Kensington in term 3 first?
Thanks, Ali, and thanks for that question. Yeah, term 3 entry certainly possible. We have some students starting term 3 in a few weeks, actually. If you begin in term 3, you don't do what you would normally do in term 1 and 2 of first year until the end of the degree. So you start in term 3 along with the other flying students who have been here for terms 1 and 2. So you start with your basic aeronautical knowledge, you do a term of that, you do flight selection at the end of that term, and then you start flying at the start of second year, which would be in the start of 2023 if you come in term 3 next year.
Excellent. Thanks for that clarification, Malcolm. It's good to know that if you are starting in term 3, you're still in the same cohort as those starting in T1. So you'll be alongside your peers there. We have another question, which is about balancing your study across Kensington and Bankstown. I don't know whether or not this is probably actually best directed again to Malcolm, is if students are sort of living on campus and travelling over to the Bankstown airport, is that a typical thing you see among flying students, or will students typically choose to live in the Bankstown area?
Thanks, Ali. Yes, that's a good question. One of the advantages of the way we structure the degree is that you are never expected to be at Kensington and Bankstown together in the same term. So while you are learning to fly, you only come to Bankstown that term. While you are doing academic courses, there is no flying component on. So travel between Kensington and Bankstown in the same week doesn't happen. Having said that, Bankstown is about an hour away from Kensington on public transport. So many of our students do in fact move to Bankstown or the surrounding area for second year flying, so they are close to the airport. But during that second year, they're not expected to travel back to Kensington.
Excellent, really good to know that. So it sounds like it is fairly convenient depending on where you wish to be based and what you're studying. So we've had another question come through about scholarships that I'll just quickly address, and it's about scholarships for international students. The best thing you can do if you are looking at scholarships is to jump onto the scholarships website, and I'll get one of my colleagues to pop that into the chat so you have easy access there. There are a lot of scholarships on offer. It's impossible for our team to be fully across all of the different scholarships you can apply for, but if you go through there, they have a really handy search function where you can just pop in your demographic information application, say I'm an international student interested in aviation, and it will bring up all the scholarships that you may be eligible for. So it's a really good idea to look at that. You then apply from within the same website, so it's quite simple there. So I might pass the next question over to Ian, and that's about balancing your study load, your social life, and potentially working. So Ian, do you have work outside of your studies, and how are you finding balancing studying, work, social life, and all of the society involvement that you have as well?
Yep. So essentially, yeah, I currently manage a few different commitments here and there. I think I'm in the same boat as many other students, especially those in their final year. So I'm doing part-time work as well as a bit of volunteering with the uni, and like you mentioned, the society involvements. And the way I see it is, I think I take it as a part of the experience. Like, it's really just something I won't be able to do after I graduate, and I feel like this is a challenge that I should really be looking at as like an opportunity to learn from, in terms of understanding myself and understanding how to balance my time better. And I think these are all skills that will eventually transfer into the workforce in good time. So I see it as an opportunity to learn, and I think that's really what university is all about, because if you sort of constantly stay in your comfort zone, you won't really feel like you're getting anywhere. So for me, this final year has been challenging, to say the least, but great fun in the sense that, I'm taking everything in its stride, and I think I'll look back at it and hopefully be able to say to myself that I don't regret taking on these commitments and balancing working and studying together. In terms of the actual workload, it's not strenuous to the point where I'm not able to handle it. I think with the trimester system, it's really complemented the way I study, because it's allowed me to spread my workload throughout the year, and that's definitely one of the benefits I've been able to realize. And in saying that, it's also, there are times where I feel like I'm struggling, but I also have found the support services available from the university very helpful. So, for instance, there's people who work at the uni who are willing to sit down and check in with you and make sure that you're on the right track in terms of your progression, in terms of how you're finding the content. Your lecturers here will always be very accommodating and generous with their time. So I don't feel like it's too strenuous.
Thank you for covering that off and those insights there, Ian. We are getting a lot of questions through about flying, so I might throw another one your way, Malcolm. So for aviation flying, there is an interview required for entry. Can you give us a little bit of insight about what that actually involves, and if you have any tips for the interview?
Yes, of course. People sometimes get worried about the interview. That I'll tell you what it's about, and I'll even give you some sample questions if you like. But one of the main goals of the interview is to explain the program for you and to answer questions you have. Also to explain the fees and the medical certification requirements that that exist. So the last thing we want is for someone who for some reason can't qualify for a medical certificate or has some other problem to waste their time and money coming here when they can't fly. That would be terrible. But it is true to say that the interview is a selection activity as well. It's very, very similar to an airline entry job interview, in that it will ask you to describe various things that you've done in your life. Basically, we're looking to see that you are keen and you understand that becoming a pilot is a lot of hard work. So I'll ask questions like, why do you want to be a pilot? what sort of things have you done in your life up till now? Tell us about what you've done at school. Do you play any sport, any outdoor activities? Do you play any musical instruments? Basically checking to see that you'll have the ability not only to learn about being a pilot to satisfy the knowledge part of it, but also the skill part of it. What I mean by that is the psychomotor skills, hand-eye foot coordination. So if you've been a swimmer, or you've played badminton, or you play a musical instrument, these are all things that give us clues that you'll be successful as a pilot. Now, it doesn't matter if you haven't done any of those things, because we'll ask you several questions, things about to ascertain whether you're an independent sort of person, whether you're good at planning things, and whether you have knowledge about the world around you. One of the questions I ask people is to point to north. So just have a look around the room now and point to north. That's one of my standard questions. Mental arithmetic, we'll ask you some basic mental arithmetic, like 12 times 14 at that level. Very, very simple, but you know, a pilot needs to be able to work out for a 12-hour flight, burning 14 tonnes an hour, how much fuel they need on board the aeroplane. And if the refueler puts in the wrong amount of fuel, you're the passenger's last line of defence. So in summary, it's a very practical interview. It's not about your dreams and your aspirations. It's more about what you've done up till this point, and what sort of skill and knowledge you bring to the table.
Awesome. Thank you for that insight, Malcolm. I'm sure that everyone who's interested in flying benefited a lot from those insights, and will be feeling a little bit more comfortable about the interview component. We do have another question related to flying that I might throw back to you, which is about how the degree program is being managed, given that borders are currently, for the most part, closed. And can students still start in the flying program? And then how does that affect their flight training?
Thank you. Yes, I'm surprised it took this long for that to come up. Obviously, if you want to fly an aeroplane in Australia, you need to be in Australia. However, the pleasing part is if you're looking to start in 2022, you don't need to be in the country until the end of 2022. So if the borders are in fact closed for that long, you can still start. As far as I know, the Term 1 and Term 2 courses will be offered on an online basis. That's the maths, physics, aviation economics, and so on. If the borders are closed, and that's what we did last year, and again this year for those students who are overseas. If the borders are still closed at the end of 2022, well, then we've got a big problem. But we'll certainly accommodate you so that when you are able to return to Australia, that you can begin your flying program at that time.
Excellent. It's good to know that there are still opportunities to get started, and that students will be supported no matter what the global situation throws at us. So I have a question now for Tevan, and that's around where you sort of see your degree taking you, and what are the next steps for you, and what you want to do when you finish up uni.
Yeah, interesting question. So yeah, I'm in my third year now, so next year is my final year of my degree. And in terms of uni work, I've kind of made it so that my final year is a little bit more relaxed. A big part of my final year is to hopefully get an internship, which I can then possibly use towards my degree. But also in terms of career aspects, the reason I decided to go into commerce and do the double degree was because I had a keen interest in finance. So I really wanted to work in airline finance, so aircraft leasing and financing and that sort of stuff. But as I went on, I really enjoyed the operation side of airlines. I took an elective, which was, I think, Airline Operations Research, which was about networking and scheduling and creating those networks for airlines. And it was very, very hard and challenging course, but very, very interesting. And yeah, so for me, I would love to either be working in one of those two areas, whether finance or operations. And I also do have a keen interest more on the airline side.
Fantastic. It's great to hear about, your aspirations and where your degree is taking you. So I think we're out of time, but we will wrap up with one more question. We'll keep this pretty quick fire, but I'm going to put it to the floor for everybody. What is the one piece of advice that you would give someone who's about to start their bachelor's degree in aviation? And sorry to put you on the spot here, but we might kick this one off with Ian.
Yeah, no worries. I think firstly, if you're about to start Bachelor of Aviation, make sure you're ready to absorb as much as you can. Really sort of act like a sponge in your first year. I think that's the best sort of metaphor I can think of, because the industry is really dynamic and there's lots of things to learn. So yeah, really just try and take on that learning attitude.
Fantastic. So we might throw to Tevan now. What's your one piece of advice?
I would say try and involve yourself with all the opportunities that come towards you. You only get to do your undergrad once, I guess. And I personally myself, I try to take up any opportunities that I see. And you've got to really let yourself be open and out there, and just take any challenges as they come, and put yourself outside of your comfort zone. And yeah.
Fantastic. And I'll throw to Malcolm next. What's your one piece of advice?
Thanks, Ali. Well, Ian and Tevan have given excellent pieces of advice. So I'll go slightly differently. If you're looking for advice between what to do between now and starting here, make sure you get a good result in high school. Learn to drive a car if that's at all possible, and have fun between now and then. Not that you won't have fun here, but the workload, there's a lot. It's not particularly easy. It's a lot of fun, and if you really want to be a pilot, you'll enjoy it immensely.
Excellent. Some more very good advice. And so we'll wrap up with Gabriel and your advice.
Thank you, Ali. Maybe a couple of quick points. The first thing is start working. Once you start with us, some students think that, well, T1 just started and I have all the time in the world. Each term is only 10 weeks. So start, right away and be on top of the study. The other thing is get involved. There are many activities that the school is supporting or organizing. Be part of it. Don't be a number, be a person. Make sure that we know you and use all the resources that you can. And I agree with Malcolm. The other thing is university is just so much fun. It was the best time I had in my life.
Excellent. Even more great advice there. So that really brings us to the end of the evening. If you do want to stay in the loop with us, we have the link up there for you to connect with us, and it means you'll get all of our news and updates about events, webinars, various things that we're hosting straight from the horse's mouth there, and you'll be able to attend anything that sort of suits your fancy there. If you do have further questions, I know we weren't able to get through every single question that was asked tonight. We have some wonderful future student advisors who are there every day answering your questions, and you can get in contact with them either through live chat, email, or on the phone, depending on your preference. But I would strongly encourage you to reach out to the team, as they'll be able to give you a personalised consultation and make sure that all of your questions are answered. So thanks again for joining us this evening, and hopefully you learnt a little bit about our wonderful School of Aviation.
You're the person the world needs. You may not know how or why yet, but you know you're here to make a difference. Few people have great ideas. Even fewer make them happen. It takes a dreamer, a researcher, a leader, a thinker. It takes someone like you.